The Galactic Council was thrown into disarray when the unexpected transmission arrived. The message was brief, but enough to send a ripple of confusion and fear through the chambers of the highest authority in the galaxy. It was a simple report from a diplomatic envoy sent to the water planet Xyloth. The envoy had been tasked with gathering information on the planet's ecosystem and its potential for colonization by various species, yet no one had anticipated the chilling discovery. They made the humans aboard the envoy's ship were unaffected by the toxic waters of the planet, while every other species present had been rendered incapacitated by the lethal waters. The humans swam in them with ease, as if the liquid had no effect on them whatsoever. A collective gasp echoed through the chambers of the council as each species present absorbed the revelation of Itath, a race known for their intellect and bioengineering expertise, were the first to speak. They had encountered many deadly forces in the galaxy, but nothing like this. The T-Kara water-dwelling beings who controlled the tides of their own home planet had lived in fear of the deadly oceans of Xyloth for centuries, yet the humans not only survived, they appeared to thrive in the waters. The Voral, an ancient and warlike race that had conquered entire star systems by brute force, expressed immediate concern. The idea that a species could exist without succumbing to the elemental force of water was a direct challenge to everything they had known. This immunity had never been seen before in the galaxy. Not even the most resilient species had developed such a defense, and no known technology could replicate such a phenomenon. The council quickly assembled to investigate further. The Itath dispatched their most trusted geneticists and researchers to study the human genome, while the T-Kara began to monitor the humans' movements, fearing that this unexpected immunity could soon become a weapon or worse, a threat to the delicate balance of their oceans. All the while, the Voral demanded that the humans be expelled from the oceans of Xyloth immediately before they could learn to exploit the planet's resources. The humans themselves were oblivious to the uproar they had caused. They continued to explore and colonize oceanic planets, taking full advantage of their unique immunity to water. They set up mining operations and research stations on worlds previously deemed uninhabitable by other species. It was as if they had discovered a hidden strength, one that no one had ever considered before. Captain Ilara Nox, the leader of the human exploration team on Xyloth, noticed the mounting tension between the council and her people. She had been in charge of the diplomatic mission and was aware that something far bigger than simple curiosity was unfolding. Yet despite the growing anxiety among the galaxy's elite, her crew remained focused on their task. They had no answers as to why their immunity existed, only that it was there, and they intended to use it to their advantage. But as the days passed and their presence on Xyloth became known throughout the galaxy, strange things began to happen. Unexplained occurrences swept through the oceans of the planet, as if the waters themselves were reacting to the humans' presence. Rumors began circulating that the oceans were alive in ways no one had understood before, and the humans might not have stumbled upon an immunity, but something much more powerful. The council met once again, with the Itath demanding answers, the T-Kara warning of potential catastrophe, and the Voral threatening action. They could no longer ignore the humans. Their immunity to water had become a galactic mystery, and the consequences of this newfound power were anyone's guess. The Galactic Council convened once again, but this time there was no calm murmur or measured debate, only an urgent atmosphere filled with uncertainty and fear. Every faction was on edge, and the question echoed through the council chambers like an unspoken curse: how had the humans developed this immunity to water? Dear Lothran from the Itath took the floor, his voice steady, but his mind racing. He had been assigned to study the humans and find the answer to their unusual resistance to water. The Itath were renowned geneticists and had perfected methods of biological manipulation, but nothing in their research had ever indicated the possibility of such an immunity in any species, let alone one so young. In the grand cosmic scheme of things, that Itath scientists were baffled by the humans and their biology. Dr. Lothran's team began their studies immediately. They focused first on the human genome, analyzing every possible angle. They used the most advanced bioscanners and molecular probes to inspect the structure of human cells. The initial scans revealed nothing out of the ordinary, no special traits or evolutionary markers to explain their remarkable resistance to the deadly waters. Days passed with little progress. The researchers grew frustrated with every analysis yielding the same result. There was no obvious reason for the immunity. It wasn't genetic. It wasn't based on any known biological structure. Instead, the human cells simply functioned as if water posed no threat to them at all. No poison, no disease could affect them, not the same way it did with every other species in the galaxy. The Tsukhera representatives grew impatient. Their species had been watching the humans closely ever since their arrival on Xyloth, and the waters of their homeworld had been more volatile than ever. Strange weather patterns and abnormal waves had begun to disrupt their sacred oceanic systems, and the Tsukhera suspected the humans were the cause. The thought of their oceans being altered by a species so new to the galaxy was unbearable. They began to argue for more direct action. Yet, it was the Vorul who expressed the most concern. Their warlord leaders were the first to view the immunity as a threat to the entire balance of galactic power. A species that could survive in water without suffering was too dangerous to allow unchecked. They were accustomed to controlling their environment with strength and overwhelming force, but they feared that the humans might not need force at all. They might simply control the oceans, and with it the resources of entire planets. As the days turned to weeks, the Council debated the next course of action. But despite all their collective knowledge, they had no answers. The humans remained a puzzle unsolvable by the finest minds of the galaxy. Captain Ilara Nox watched from the sidelines, still unaware of the growing tensions back in the Council chambers. She continued her work exploring the vast oceans of Tyloth and others. Like it, her crew had grown accustomed to the strange occurrences beneath the waves, voices that seemed to echo through the waters, and the sense that something unseen was watching them. Ilara was certain that there was something more to their immunity, something beyond the scope of biological science. It wasn't simply a random mutation or the result of a strange evolutionary path. There was a connection between the humans and the waters of the galaxy that defied logic. She began to suspect that they had been drawn to these planets for a reason, something ancient and hidden beneath the waves. Meanwhile, the ITAF had begun testing a new theory. Perhaps the immunity was linked to an external factor, something beyond biology, but they had no idea what that factor could be. Their technology could only detect known elements and forces. Nothing seemed to account for the strange resistance they were witnessing. Time was running out, and the Council had grown restless without an answer. There could be no peace. The humans' immunity to water was not just a biological mystery, it had become a political one. And with each passing day, the galaxy edged closer to a conflict no one knew how to prevent. The tension in the Galactic Council reached a boiling point as the Tsukhera made their intentions known. They had been watching the humans closely for weeks, and their patience was wearing thin. The water-dwelling species had seen their oceans disturbed by human presence, and the results were undeniable. The humans' immunity to water was no accident, but a dangerous anomaly that threatened the very balance of their aquatic ecosystems. The Tsukhera believed the humans were tampering with forces they could not possibly understand. Representatives from the Tsukhera demanded immediate action from the Council. Their planet's oceans were sacred, they claimed, and the fragile harmony of their world could not survive the potential chaos brought by the humans' unnatural resistance to water. It wasn't just about the oceans of Tyloth anymore, but the oceans of every world in the galaxy. The Tsukhera warned that if humans continued to expand unchecked, they would soon begin to interfere with the sacred waters of other planet species across the galaxy. It depended on these delicate ecosystems to survive. The Tsukhera spoke of the ancient stories of devastation, when once thriving oceans were ruined by reckless actions of outside forces, and they feared that the humans would follow in those footsteps. The Council was divided. Some factions argued that the Tsukhera's fears were exaggerated and that the humans' immunity posed no immediate threat, but others were less certain. The Vorul warlords were especially vocal about the matter. They saw the humans' ability to resist water as a potential weapon that could be turned against any planet or species at will. What if the humans turned their newfound power to military conquest? What if they began to control the flow of water on a galactic scale? Could anyone stand against a species that held dominion over such a fundamental element of life? As the council session grew more heated, a quiet tension simmered beneath the surface. Captain Ilara Knox and her crew continued their explorations on Psyloth and other oceans. Unaware of the political storm raging across the stars, there had been strange occurrences in the water, something they couldn't yet explain. Mysterious symbols appeared on the ocean floor, strange currents that had no natural source, and more unsettling, a sense of being watched that grew stronger with every dive. The crew was accustomed to the unpredictable nature of the oceans, but this felt different. This wasn't just a natural phenomenon. There was a presence beneath the waves. Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that something had been waiting for humanity, something tied to their immunity to water, but what it was and why it had chosen them remained a mystery. Her thoughts were interrupted one day when an ancient alien structure was discovered deep beneath the ocean floor. The structure was unlike anything they had ever seen. Vast and sprawling, it appeared to be part of a long-forgotten city. The architecture was alien beyond recognition, but the symbols etched into its walls were eerily familiar. Ilara felt an almost magnetic pull toward them. As she ventured deeper into the ruins, the unease in her chest grew stronger. The air around her seemed to shimmer with energy, and then, in a sudden flash of light, something changed. The ocean around her became still, as if it had held its breath, and then a voice echoed in her mind, a voice older than any species. She knew a voice that spoke of a forgotten time when humanity had been part of a larger galactic plan. The message was cryptic but unmistakable. "You are not the first to walk this path," the voice said, "but you will be the one to awaken it." Ilara staggered back, her mind racing, the weight of the words crashing into her. She had no answers, only more questions. But one thing was clear: the waters of the galaxy were far more than they seemed, and humanity's immunity to them was the key to something far greater than they could have ever imagined. Meanwhile, on the council, the debate raged on, and the rift between the factions deepened. The Tskera pushed for a hard stance against the humans, while the Vorul saw opportunity for domination. Others, like the Itath, were beginning to realize that the humans' immunity was part of a much larger cosmic story, one that had yet to unfold. But in the meantime, the humans were on a collision course with a secret from the depths of the galaxy, and no one, not even the humans themselves, knew what lay beneath the surface of their immunity. As the days turned to weeks, the political pressure on humanity escalated, but Captain Ilara Knox and her crew remained focused on their mission. They had stumbled upon something far more significant than anyone could have predicted, but they were still unsure of its meaning. Deep beneath the waves of Psyloth, the discovery of the ancient alien city only deepened the mystery. The strange symbols, the eerie presence in the water, the cryptic voice, all pointed to something humanity could not yet comprehend, but there was no turning back now. While the council was embroiled in endless debates, humanity continued to make headway on planets with similar oceanic environments. Humanity's immunity to water had quickly become their greatest asset. They began establishing thriving colonies beneath the oceans of previously uninhabitable planets, using their immunity not only to survive, but to unlock ancient alien technologies buried deep within the seas. The humans uncovered vast ruins and remnants of civilizations long lost to time, and water civilizations that had once risen and fallen beneath the waves now lay dormant, waiting to be rediscovered. These findings didn't go unnoticed by the council factions. The Tskera continued to protest the human presence on these planets, fearing that their meddling would destroy what little harmony remained in their delicate ecosystems. But there was little they could do. Humanity's colonies were thriving, and their explorers were uncovering technologies that seemed to have been designed specifically for them and their immunity to water. Captain Knox, while still uneasy about the strange events surrounding their discoveries, began to see the potential benefits of this new knowledge. The cities they had uncovered held advanced technologies that could transform entire worlds. Some were devices designed to cleanse polluted oceans, others were technologies that could produce infinite energy drawn from the deep currents of the planet's oceans. Humanity now had access to solutions for the galactic water crisis that had plagued countless civilizations. But with these discoveries came a growing sense of unease. The waters of Xyloth were far from calm, and the strange occurrences in the oceans continued to escalate. Ilara and her crew were experiencing more vivid dreams and unsettling visions, as if the ocean itself was calling to them. The deeper they ventured into the ancient city, the stronger the pull became. It was as though the water recognized them as its chosen ones, and it was urging them to awaken something long buried within the depths. One day, during an exploration of a submerged temple, Ilara found herself standing before a massive stone door adorned with the same symbols that had appeared on the walls of the ruins. The door pulsed with energy, and for the first time since they had arrived on Xyloth, Ilara felt as though she was meant to open it. She reached out and placed her hand on the door. It responded with a sudden surge of energy that sent a shockwave through her body. In that moment, Ilara understood that the city, the symbols, the water, and humanity's immunity were all part of a grander design, a plan that had been set into motion long before her crew had ever set foot on Xyloth. The door slowly began to open, revealing a chamber far more advanced than anything they had discovered before. Inside was a massive artifact glowing with a soft blue light. The moment Ilara approached it, a voice filled her mind once more. "The time has come," it whispered. "The Guardians are awakening." Ilara's heart raced. She didn't understand what the voice meant, but she knew that this artifact was no ordinary relic. It was something far more significant, something that would unlock the next phase of humanity's purpose in the galaxy. Back at the council, things were reaching a breaking point. The debate had gone on long enough, and the ITAth had finally concluded that the humans' immunity was no accident. Their connection to the waters of the galaxy was far more than biological. It was part of an ancient galactic plan, one that they couldn't ignore any longer. The Council could no longer sit idle as humanity uncovered secrets that might change the course of galactic history forever. The stakes were higher than ever, and the galaxy was about to be shaken to its core by a power humanity had yet to fully understand. The moment Captain Ilara Nox touched the artifact, the entire ocean seemed to come alive. A low hum resonated through the water. Vibrating against her skin, the air itself felt charged with energy, as if the very fabric of the planet was awakening around her. The chamber was vast, with walls that stretched out of sight, covered in symbols that had yet to be deciphered, but none of that mattered now. The artifact, glowing with an ethereal light, seemed to draw Ilara in. Its pull was magnetic, and as she gazed upon it, a realization struck her. This was no relic, it was a key. Before she could react, the voice that had spoken to her earlier filled her mind again, clearer this time, more urgent. "The Guardians are awakening, and you will lead them." Ilara was startled by the clarity of the message. There was no room for doubt. Now the humans were not just survivors of the oceans. They were part of something far larger than themselves, a purpose, perhaps an ancient design that tied them irrevocably to the galaxy's fate. The artifact shimmered as Ilara reached out once more, her fingers grazing its surface. The glow intensified, and the chamber around her seemed to shift. It was as if the ocean was shifting its very landscape in response to her touch. A surge of visions flashed before her eyes. Ancient civilizations, now lost to time, struggling against forces they could not control. Their cities had been built upon the oceans, but the oceans had not been kind to them. They had made mistakes, just as humanity might. For a fleeting moment, Ilara saw a future where the oceans were not a sanctuary, but a battleground. Entire fleets of ships, fighting over the control of the vast underwater cities. The power of the waters now in the hands of those who had the ability to manipulate it. Could humanity avoid repeating the mistakes of those long-dead civilizations? Was it too late to stop what had already begun? She pulled her hand away from the artifact, heart pounding, her thoughts racing. The chamber slowly returned to its stillness. But she now knew the truth. Humanity's immunity to water was not an accident, and it was not a blessing. It was a test that humanity had yet to pass. Back on the surface, the political situation was unraveling. The Tukara had made their move, sending warning signals to the Council that humanity's presence on aquatic planets had become a direct threat. Their oceans were being altered in ways they could not control. The Tukara had dispatched their military forces to secure their oceans and expel the humans from their planets, and for the first time, the Council took a united stance against the human expansion. The Vorul, ever hungry for power, saw this as an opportunity. Their warlords were quick to call for military action, to seize the oceans, and to control the very element that had given humanity such power. The Itath, while reluctant, were beginning to align with the more aggressive factions, concerned that the humans were becoming too powerful too quickly, and if their immunity was truly tied to some ancient force, it could give them dominion over all life in the galaxy. The humans, however, were unfazed as their colonies continued to flourish beneath the waves. They had built cities that could not be destroyed by storms or waves. They had unlocked technologies that provided infinite energy from the currents of the oceans, but most of all, they had learned to harness the ancient power buried beneath the waters. Their presence was no longer a peaceful exploration. It had become a declaration of dominion. Ilara returned to the surface after leaving the chamber, her mind heavy with the weight of what she had learned. The artifact had revealed humanity's connection to the waters of the galaxy was not a random occurrence. It was a choice, a design, perhaps even a test from an ancient civilization that had disappeared long ago. As Ilara stood at the helm of her ship, she looked out at the horizon. Where the water met the sky, the galaxy was on the edge of something monumental, and she knew that humanity was at the heart of it. But would they be its savior or its destroyer? The answer was still unclear, but one thing was certain. The waters were awakening, and so were the humans with them. The tension in the Council was palpable. War seemed imminent, and the fate of the oceans and the galaxy rested on a single question. Could humanity control the power they had uncovered, or would they be overwhelmed by it? Only time would tell. The days following Captain Ilara Nox's discovery in the ancient chamber on Psyloth were marked by a growing sense of urgency and unease. Throughout the galaxy, the humans had uncovered something far beyond the scope of their understanding. And now, that power was rippling across the galaxy with each passing day. The Council's unity splintered further. The Tsakara, their greatest adversaries, were relentless in their demand for immediate action, while the Vorul warlords began preparing their forces for a potential conflict. Ilara and her crew had been in communication with the Council's representatives, but her reports were becoming increasingly cryptic. She knew the galaxy was teetering on the edge of chaos, and that the humans' immunity to water and their newfound knowledge of the ancient technology beneath the ocean could either save or doom them all in the depths of the ocean. She had witnessed the potential for great destruction, but also for salvation, if humanity could learn to control the powers they had awoken. Back on the Council, the situation had become dire. The Tukara were pushing for an immediate military intervention to halt the human encroachment on their oceans. They argued that the waters of their planet were not to be tampered with. No species could be allowed to control the oceanic forces that had shaped their worlds for eons. The Itath had grown increasingly alarmed, their research now showing that the humans' resistance to water wasn't merely physical. It was linked to a complex biotechnological connection that was far beyond anything they had seen before. The Vorul, ever the opportunists, were less concerned with the ecological ramifications and more focused on the military potential of the humans' immunity. They saw the oceans as the next frontier in their endless pursuit of power. If they could unlock the secret to controlling the waters themselves, they would possess a weapon unlike any other one that could turn the tide of any galactic war. At the same time, that Itath presented a different argument. They saw the humans as a kind of wild card, a species too unpredictable to be left unchecked. Their immunity to water wasn't simply a biological advantage, it was a sign of something much more dangerous, a connection to an ancient galactic power that could reshape the galaxy itself. The Itath feared what would happen if the humans began to unravel the true nature of this power. They were not merely immune to the waters. They were attuned to them, able to manipulate them in ways that no other species could comprehend. Meanwhile, Captain Knox had made another unsettling discovery. Elara and her crew had begun to experiment with the newly discovered technologies beneath the oceans, and they found themselves unlocking more than just energy sources or ancient artifacts. The waters themselves seemed to respond to them, guiding them toward new discoveries. But there were signs, subtle at first, that something else was awakening deeper within the oceanic chambers. The oceans were alive in a way they had never imagined. One day, Elara received a message from the artifact, a faint but clear signal that sent a chill down her spine. It was not just a warning, but an invitation. The voice she had heard before echoed in her mind once more. "The Guardians are waiting for you, Elara. The time has come to awaken them." But this time, the voice was different. It was not a message of hope or purpose. It was a command. There was no choice but to heed it or face the consequences. Elara felt an overwhelming pull toward the water again, as if the very ocean itself was calling her, beckoning her to return to the chamber where it all began. Her crew gathered in silence as she prepared to descend once more into the depths. The message had left no room for doubt. This was the next step, whatever it was meant to be. The Council, oblivious to what was truly happening beneath the surface, continued their bickering, each faction determined to secure its own interests. The Tizkara demanded an immediate blockade of all human colonies in the oceanic sectors, while the Voral's warlords mobilized their fleets to ensure they had control of the waters no matter the cost. Yet none of them understood what Elara now knew. The true nature of the oceans was not just a resource, nor a weapon. It was a living, breathing force tied to the very heart of the galaxy itself, and humanity had unknowingly awakened its power. Elara stood on the edge of the ship, staring down into the vast expanse of the ocean. Beneath her, the waves were calm, but she could feel the pulse of the ancient energy beneath her feet. It was the beginning of something far greater than she had imagined, something that would forever change the fate of humanity and the galaxy. The next move was hers. The descent into the depths was silent, save for the hum of the ship's engines and the steady pressure building around Captain Elara Knox and her crew as they approached the ancient chamber again. The ocean around them was unnervingly still, as if waiting for something to happen. The water itself seemed to be holding its breath, its surface as smooth as glass, reflecting the faint light from their descent. The feeling of being watched, of something ancient and powerful awakening beneath the waves, was stronger than ever. Elara stood at the helm, her mind still reeling from the message from the artifact. The voice, commanding yet calm, had made it clear. This wasn't just about exploring ancient technologies or unlocking energy sources. This was about a force, a presence, that humanity had yet to fully understand. It was as if the very fabric of the ocean was a living entity, and the humans, with their strange immunity, were the key to awakening something that had slumbered for eons. Her heart raced as the ship sank deeper into the abyss. The chamber where they had discovered the artifact was approaching, and with it, the answers they sought, or the potential for even greater dangers. The ocean around them pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, like a heartbeat that resonated in the bones of the crew. It was as though the planet itself had a consciousness, a will that could be felt in every movement of the water. The crew felt it too, each member staring into the dark expanse, their faces illuminated only by the pale glow of the ship's lights. As they neared the location of the artifact, Elara's instincts screamed at her to turn back, to leave the depths alone, but she couldn't. She knew, deep down, that there was no turning back now. Humanity had already crossed the threshold, and whatever lay beneath the surface was bound to affect them all. The ship came to a stop near the entrance to the submerged city. The ancient door still sealed before them. The symbols on its surface glowed faintly, their patterns shifting as if alive. The Guardians, Elara thought, remembering the cryptic message from the voice. This was where it all began, and this was where it would end, or change everything. Elara took a deep breath and stepped toward the door, her crew following suit as they donned their gear and prepared to enter the chamber with a steady hand. She reached for the door's surface, feeling the energy hum beneath her fingertips. The symbols shifted again, forming new patterns that seemed to reach out to her, Almost in recognition, it was as if the door knew who she was and why she had come. Without warning, the door opened, revealing a vast chamber beyond the walls were lined with strange, glowing structures that seemed to pulse in time with the heartbeat of the ocean itself. In the center of the chamber stood a massive statue, its features worn and weathered by the passage of time but unmistakable. This was a guardian, an ancient being that had once protected the oceans and all they contained. As Ilara stepped closer, the water around them began to shimmer, rippling as if responding to her presence. It was then that the voice returned, this time louder, more insistent. "You are the one who will awaken us. Ilara, the guardians have slept for millennia, waiting for this moment." Her mind reeled as the implications of the message hit her. The guardians were not just relics or mythical beings. They were real, powerful forces that had once governed the oceans, and their power could be unleashed once again. But at what cost? In that moment, Ilara understood the magnitude of what humanity was about to unleash. The oceans had been a source of life, but also a force of destruction. For as long as the galaxy had existed, they were the pulse of the planet, the lifeblood of civilizations, and now humanity was poised to awaken something that could either save or destroy them all. As she reached out to touch the statue, the chamber trembled violently. A surge of energy exploded outward, and the once still waters began to churn wildly around them. Ilara braced herself, but there was no turning back now. The guardians were awakening, and they were about to reveal the true power of the oceans. The galaxy, once ignorant of the ancient forces slumbering beneath the waves, was about to be forever changed, and the humans, with their strange immunity, would either be its saviors or its destroyers. The choices they made in these next moments would echo across the stars for millennia to come. The ocean roared as if it had come alive with a fury that had been dormant for millennia. Waves surged around Captain Ilara Knox and her crew, shaking the very foundations of the chamber. The once still waters now seemed to possess a will of their own, as if the planet itself were awakening from a long slumber. Ilara felt the energy surging through the depths, coursing around them like an ancient pulse. The guardians, long forgotten by the galaxy, were no longer mere legends. They were real, and they were rising. As the walls of the chamber trembled, the massive statue in the center of the room seemed to shift. Its form, which had once been still and lifeless, now radiated with an otherworldly energy. The water around it swirled, spiraling into a vortex that pulled Ilara and her crew closer to the statue. The faint glow of the symbols on the walls intensified, and for a brief moment, Ilara saw the entire history of the oceans unfold before her. Civilizations rising and falling, powerful forces at play, and the guardians who had once maintained balance between the waters and the stars. "You have awakened us," the voice echoed, its tone reverberating through Ilara's mind. It was no longer just a whisper, but a thunderous command. "The oceans are no longer yours to control. The time of reckoning has come." Ilara's heart raced as the magnitude of the voice's words sank in. The guardians, these ancient entities, had once held dominion over the oceans and the very forces of nature that governed them. And now, they had returned, their power intertwined with the waters that flowed beneath every planet in the galaxy. The humans, with their strange immunity, were part of something much larger than they had ever understood. They had triggered a cosmic event, and the consequences would be felt across the galaxy. "Humanity is not prepared for this," Ilara whispered, but she knew it was too late to turn back. The awakening of the Guardians was irreversible. The question now was what role humanity would play in the galaxy's future. Would they be able to wield this newfound power, or would they be crushed under the weight of forces beyond their comprehension? The Guardians' form solidified, and their presence flooded the chamber. They were no longer statues. They were living beings, towering and majestic, radiating power that Ilara could feel deep within her soul. Their eyes, glowing with an ethereal light, locked onto her, and she felt a strange connection, as if they were probing her very thoughts, searching for something. "You have the potential to lead," the voice rumbled, "but you must prove worthy." Ilara's mind raced. She knew the galaxy was on the brink of chaos, and humanity had become the central figure in a cosmic drama that was playing out before her eyes. The Tukara, the Vortal, the Itath, each faction had its own agendas, each seeking to control the oceans, to control the power of the Guardians. But the oceans were not meant to be controlled, they were meant to be balanced. And the Guardians would accept no rulers. They would only allow those who understood the true nature of the waters. The swirling vortex of water around them began to dissipate, but the energy of the Guardians remained, pulsing in the depths. Ilara stood before them, knowing that the choices she made in these next moments would shape the future of humanity and the galaxy. There was no room for fear, no time for doubt. The water had called them to this moment, and now they must face it. As the Guardians' gaze softened, they spoke once more, their voices resonating in Ilara's mind. The galaxy is yours to protect, but it is a fragile thing. If you are to survive, you must learn from the past. The oceans, remember, they have seen empires rise and empires fall. Will you be their savior or their downfall? Ilara's heart pounded as she stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the Guardians. She knew that humanity's future depended on the decisions made here, in the depths of the ocean. The galaxy's fate rested on her shoulders, but she was no longer afraid. She had come this far, and there was no turning back. "We will protect it," Ilara said, her voice steady and firm. "We will learn, we will adapt, and we will ensure that the oceans remain in balance. We are not here to conquer. We are here to understand." The Guardians' eyes glowed brighter, their power filling the chamber with a blinding light. And then, as quickly as it had all started, the light faded, and the water around them settled into calm serenity. The Guardians had spoken. The path forward was now clear. Humanity had awakened the oceans, and now they would help guide the galaxy toward a new era, a time of understanding, balance, and unity. But the journey ahead would not be easy. The galaxy was vast, and the forces at play were far greater than anyone could have imagined. But humanity had proven itself worthy, and the Guardians, ancient and wise, had given them their blessing. The age of the oceans had arrived.